Welcome back to Module 7. My name is Vikram Panchal, and today we'll be looking at our final module. You've done incredibly well to last the last 6 modules, and you've survived so far, and I hope you've been learning so much and making notes because it's going to be helpful as you learn to apply the things that we have learned together. Today, my module is called Building Bridges. We are going to look at all the big ideas that we have learned over the past 6 modules and bring them together succinctly so you can use these ideas and remind yourself of the most critical things that we have taken away from our time together in Multiply Your Time. The very first thing that I want to share with you that's a very life-changing principle is that when you give your time for God's cause, God will fill your life with purpose and joy in abundance. And that's the truth. We learned this in module number 1 and module number 2. What we discovered is that when you give your life first and the time that you have left on this earth, utilize it for God's purpose first, seek to discover His calling for your life in the season that you're currently facing, God will always refill it with joy and abundance. The second principle I want to share with you is that to live for life-giving busyness, you need to eliminate, automate, and delegate. We don't want to be running frantically around anymore, helter-skelter, trying to figure out how to take care of all of our multiple responsibilities that are pressing in on us. We want to be future-focused. We want to be planned well in advance so that we can take care of any crises, any fires that start to burn, any issues that take place in our churches, organizations. We want to be well managed and prevent disasters from taking place. When you look ahead into the future, you're able to manage your time much better and prevent inevitable scenarios from taking place. So how do we live our life for life-giving busyness, which is planned productivity? Well, like I said, elimination is to take away all those time wasters, the things that are not contributing or adding a lot of value to your life. You can eliminate those things. The second thing you can do is to automate those tasks. If you remember what I shared previously, time multipliers always have the future and the end in sight. They will invest time now in setting up systems that will help them to save time somewhere down the track. Rather than repeating the same task over and over again, they will find a way to only have to do that task once and not have to repeat it again. The third thing you can do is to delegate that task to somebody else whom you can train up or invest in or believe in so that they can do the same quality of what you have been doing to free you up to focus on your life goals. The third principle I want to share with you is to embrace your limitations. We can't be everywhere at one point in time. And sadly, technology tries its best to give us the ability to be in multiple places at one point of time. But unfortunately, science has been showing it's not necessarily helpful to us. The truth is, we have limitations, and we can only be focused on one thing at a time and not on multiple things at a time, because if we do that, we will be distracted and not be able to make any headway on the life goals that God has in store for us to achieve. So strive for focus and attention on the task you are pursuing. Lesson number 4, or principle number 4, is to make intentional efforts to tear it down. I love that word because tear it down, as we discovered, means to really be able to turn off the digital distractions in your life and to turn up your presence in everything you do. You don't want to be the kind of parent at the playground where your kids are playing around asking for your attention, but you're too busy on the phone, not able to give them the time that they need. Children will always equate time with your presence and your focus with your presence. So it's not just with children, it's even in your workplace and in every aspect that you do. People will realize the kind of person that you are when you're able to turn off the distractions and focus on them individually or on the tasks that you're working on. Let's choose to be people who are present in every situation of our life. And you know, some interesting research was done not too long ago where they discovered that the happiest people were not those who were dreaming about all the great things they could be doing or all the great holidays that they could be going on or trying to do multiple things at one time. They were just people who were present in the moment, in the task that they had assigned to them, or in the person that they were communicating with. They were focused and they were present and they were found or discovered to be the happiest people. What I want to share with you is an interesting story about a man called Nick Wallenda. Nick Wallenda has gone to break many, many world records in doing tightrope, walking all around the world in the most craziest and scariest places. You can see him here crossing the Niagara Falls in a record-breaking time. In fact, he's probably the only one who's ever done it, or at least in his lifetime, he was the first person to have ever achieved this amazing feat. Well, what was it about Nick Wallenda? While Nick Wallenda was crossing this tightrope across the Niagara Falls, I would, if it was me, I would have been incredibly nervous. I would have been shaking, my teeth would have been chattering, I would have been incredibly cold. Probably I would have fallen off at my first step. But Nick Wallenda made it all the way through in just over 2 hours. And all that with the gushing, loud, roaring noise of the Niagara Falls behind him. A helicopter above him tracing every single movement. And he would obviously have known that there were reporters tracking his movements, commenting on everything that was happening, seeing if he was going to make it to the other end alive. And on top of it, waiting for him on the other side was his huge fan base of people who had come to see if Nick Wallenda would make it through, including all the news reporters, the media coverage, everywhere was surrounded by distractions. But Nick Wallenda was staying focused and he made it through step by step until he made it through to the other side. Well, here's the interesting backstory about Nick Wallenda that you probably don't know much about. Nick was raised up in a family where his parents were well-known trapeze artists. They were tightrope walkers as well. And so by the age of 2, his parents got him to walk on a simple tightrope with the mom holding Nick's hand as he crossed the tightrope with her assistance. By the age of 4, he was walking on a tightrope about a half a meter above the ground without any support at all. And that too, his parents were shouting, distracting him, trying to even shoot him with a BB gun, and he was still able to make it through to the end. From his birth, his parents were doing everything possible to prepare him for the future that awaited him. And when you see Nick Wallenda, when he grew up, even as a child, his ambition was to take on the Niagara Falls, and he took it on to be the first man to cross it successfully. With all those distractions, Nick Wallenda was able to stay focused on the goal ahead. Interestingly enough, Nick Wallenda is actually a committed Christian. And this is what he says. He said it's extremely important to never let your mind wander. If there's anyone who has discovered the importance about being present in your situation, it's probably him. Because if you're going to get distracted for even a moment while you're trying to cross the tightrope to get to the end of the Niagara Falls, you're probably going to plummet to your death. With Nick, he knew that being focused and being present on the very step that's ahead of him is absolutely critical. And the truth is that it applies to us as well. If we want to get from where we are now to where we need to be, is going to be through exercising discipline and be crossing the bridge to get us from where we are to the plans that God has in store for us in the future. But we can dream about it, we can talk about it, we can post about it on social media as much as we like. But if we're not going to take the next step to get to our destination, to fulfill the calling that God has in store for you, that will always just remain a dream that will die with you. Why not turn your dreams into reality? Make it something that's concrete so that your life and your efforts and your time can be used to bless somebody else and to bless your own family, so that when people look back on your life, they will remember you for someone who used their time to maximize it and be a blessing to others. I want to thank you for joining me on this incredible series. I hope you've been blessed. I hope you've taken away a lot of important things that you can use practically and applicably right in your life from the very get-go. I hope you've been blessed, and I look forward to seeing you another time. Hi there. I wanted to leave you with a closing thought before we finish off this series. As you have been blessed, and I have been blessed in imparting these incredible life-transforming principles on multiplying your time, I hope that you can also practically take away these principles and apply them to your life immediately. But if you want to stay in contact and continue to learn and improve, not only in the area of time multiplication, but on all facets of your life that will help you to live your life to your highest potential, I want to encourage you to start listening to the podcast I recently developed called Lead Your Life with Vikram Panchal, that's available on all major podcasting platforms. It also airs on Adventist World Radio and on Faith FM for those who live in Australia. The beauty of this podcast is that it's given me the opportunity to interview people who are living their game at the highest level, people who have chosen to put God first above all other things. One of the interviews I recently conducted was with a pro soccer athlete. His name is Todd Brody. Todd shares what it takes to perform at the highest level as an athlete. And we can also take away principles, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a high school teacher, a pastor, or an administrator. Whatever walk of life you come from, you can realize that by staying focused and being disciplined, you can apply the same principles that Todd shares into your life to make a greater impact. Another interview I conducted was with a fascinating man called Frederick Armand. Frederick was stabbed 39 times as a young man. He even watched his mother die in the same room where he was as a burglar broke in. But in spite of all the tragedies that Frederick faced, he shares about how he unpacked and discovered the art of deep forgiveness. For those of you who may be struggling with resentment and bitterness, this would be a great podcast for you to learn from a man who's been so badly injured, but has learned to forgive deeply. In another interview I did with John Bradshaw, who is the speaker director of It Is Written, we had a fascinating interview of how he discovered the calling for his life and how you can also do the same in your life today as well. So if you would like to uncover more and continue to learn more in how to live your life to the highest potential, I encourage you to listen to this podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you again.